Good evening, I'm Chris Inukjuak. Welcome to APTN National News. Thank you for joining us. The identity of an individual killed by police in Inukjuak, Quebec last week has now been confirmed by APTN News. James Kavik was wounded by gunfire during an altercation with the Nunavut Police Service, or NPS, last Thursday on July 17th. The 34-year-old father was later pronounced dead at the community's health center. Kavik's death marks the third fatal police altercation for NPS since November. NPS had responded to a report of a forcible confinement where they say a confrontation led them to shoot Kavik. The fatality is now under investigation by Quebec's police watchdog agency, BEI. For more on this story, please go to our website at aptnnews.ca. Nearly 2 years after his death, a sentencing hearing was held for 3 people involved in the killing of 38-year-old Cory Roulette. APTN's Sarah Bettens joins us with more details on what unfolded in court today.
Corey Roulette is remembered by his family as an old, gentle soul who loved country music and old movies. But his time with them was cut short on August 26, 2023, when he was murdered by 3 strangers in his home in Winnipeg's West End. He was 38 years old and a father of 4 children. Today, nearly 2 years after his death, the 3 people who killed him were in court for sentencing. Kyle Alex Harper pleaded guilty to second-degree murder last May. Ramona Harriet Harper and Raoul West Tyson Bradley Harper both pleaded guilty to manslaughter in April. The Crown and defense recommended a life sentence with no chance of parole for 12 years for Kyle. The Crown suggested 8 years in prison for Raoul and Ramona, and the defense suggested 5. According to police evidence, Roulette was found unresponsive after officers were called to his home on Furby Street on August 26, 2023, for a report of a man being shot. Roulette was rushed to hospital in critical condition and pronounced deceased. Today, the Crown described Ramona as a catalyst, Kyle as a shooter, and Raoul as the extra muscle in Roulette's murder. This morning, court also heard victim impact statements from Roulette's sisters, niece, and children. They said the loss drastically impacted their lives, the lives of their children, and their mental health. Court also heard that the 3 killers were raised in poverty, abuse, and intergenerational trauma. The judge in this case did not sentence the 3 today. She said that she hopes to do that in August. Sarah Bettens, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
It's been a busy summer for new Indigenous Services Minister Mandy Golastie. She has had to deal with a heavy wildfire season that has impacted Indigenous communities across Canada. There is also the Liberal government's passage of its controversial economic development legislation bill C5. And to top it all off, there is talk of an austerity budget in the fall with cuts to Indigenous Services Canada. Minister Mandy Golastie joins us from our Ottawa studio to talk about some of these issues, including last week's meeting between the Prime Minister and chiefs. Thanks for joining me today, Minister Golastie. Along with the Prime Minister, you will be meeting with Inuit leaders in the Northwest Territories later this week. How does the government plan to address some of their concerns about Bill C5?
Thank you, Wajak Creason. We had a really interesting conversation last week. I think it was one that was very frank. It was constructive for me as a minister to understand, what's the Indigenous lens on Bill C5. And tomorrow we will be traveling up to Inukjuak. I'm very excited to be traveling to Inuit territory and to have this conversation, I think, with a different lens on. The governance and the approach and the relationship with federal government is not the same in both of those contexts. So I am expecting that, we'll be hear some new messaging, some new concerns. But of course, I think there's also new areas of interest.
Really briefly here, Minister, I want to hear your takeaway from the meeting from last week between the Prime Minister and the chiefs.
I think last week it was a very frank discussion. I'm really pleased that Indigenous leadership got to hear directly from the Prime Minister. He was there for the duration of the meeting. It's a learning experience for this government. We're a new government. We have a new Prime Minister. This is a new kind of relationship that's being developed. I do think that there was, a lot of challenge in the subject, understanding what the expectation is, understanding what the next step forward is. But this was a first conversation, and for me, gave me a lot of information to reflect on, and there's going to be those follow-up tables, regional discussions, engaging more at the community level, coming to understand what is the approach, provincially with the relationship to the Indigenous communities that are within those provinces. How are we going to look at that lens moving forward? Still a lot of work to do. Of course, always room for improvement. Nothing's perfect, but I think moving forward, I feel better equipped with the feedback that I heard from participants to really have conversation and engagement that is tailored to the expectations and needs of the communities.
Minister, let's turn to the wildfire season. It seems like over the past few years, there have been a number of bad wildfire seasons, and First Nations are usually the worst impacted. Can you explain how Ottawa can lessen some of the impacts for those First Nations?
I think that Ottawa has been really reacting and really responsive to, the concerns of the wildfire season. It is unprecedented. It is on a scale that we've never seen before. There are many communities directly impacted. I want to thank my colleague, Minister Osevsky, and the other ministers that have really participated in this process to respond to First Nations communities. There's 4 parts of dealing with fire season. There's that initial evacuation. There's taking care of evacuees while they're at site. There's the next step of getting them home. And then, of course, there's addressing the long-term impacts of what happens when you are evacuated and when your territory is impacted by forest fire. So there's a lot of ongoing work that I think you'll see coming out of this process. It really speaks to the need to have a longer conversation post-fire season, sitting down with First Nations leadership and asking them, how can we better equip you moving forward? I think that we have to really acknowledge this is the new reality, that climate and climate change is impacting First Nations in a very different way. I'm very pleased to hear from my colleague, Minister Osevsky, that climate resilience is something that's at the forefront of what she wants to do in serving First Nations, and I support and echo that. And that's one of my concerns as a minister in moving forward. How can we better equip communities to be the frontline response? How can we support them in this process? And what are their needs? Should this occur in the future? Hopefully not, but should it occur again, we want to be sure that we are working, seamlessly in alignment with each other. And that also includes the approach at the provincial level. How can my counterparts and I have a discussion that is inclusive of First Nations needs, and how can we collaborate and enhance working together?
And Minister, there have been reports in the media that ISC will have to reduce its spending by as much as 15% in the next budget. How do you plan to do this without sacrificing education, healthcare, and many other services Indigenous people desperately need?
I think that these stories were very rampant in the media. I was aware that this information was shared. For me at ISC, we are really looking at ensuring when we have this discussion around budget and this budget exercise, our criteria is to make sure that we're not touching programs and services. For us, that means, we will see the sunsetting of some programs that were on an agreed period. That agreement has come to the end of life, so they will likely not be renewed. I'm also looking at, what is the effectiveness and efficiency of some modes of operation. We're looking at department reorganization, and I think the way that we serve our clients at ISC is one that really needs to be adjusted. So for me, really having this one window approach where community can come to ISC through one portal, talk about all of their issues, be supported directly, with frontline, with somebody that's very aware of all of the needs across the community's territory or nation. That's really critical to be able to offer that service. So that means, some restructuring will be done, and Our priority is always going to be responding to the community's needs. And for us to do that, we have to do a self-assessment. How are we operating and how can we offer a better service? Does that mean that there's going to be a reduction in service? I don't think so. For me, my priority is enhancing service. It does mean that there may be a change in how we offer that service, but for us, my priority is really to make sure that we are responding to our clients' needs and that we are offering service in the best possible way for those needs.
Minister Mandy Golastie, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you for your time.
Awesome. Thank you, Wajah.
We're always looking for your feedback or story ideas. Here's how you can continue the conversation with us. If you have a story you want to share, send us an email to news@aptn.ca. And to read and watch our stories, you can go to aptnnews.ca. And you can also find us online on your favorite social media sites, including TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, and X. Follow APTN News to join the conversation and see our latest stories. A class action lawsuit against the province of Ontario over birth alerts has been given the green light. We'll speak to one of the lawyers involved in that case when we come back. Stay with us. Welcome back. A class action lawsuit against the province of Ontario has been given the go-ahead. The lawsuit is regarding birth alerts, which Child Welfare Agency issues to hospitals for mothers who are considered high risk. But those agencies are now off limits for being sued by moms of infants that were taken at birth. Tina Yang is the lawyer for this class action case. She joins me now from Toronto. Tina Yang, thank you so much for speaking with us. My first question is, why is this class action so important? And can you explain how many moms are impacted by birth alerts?
Sure. So with regard to the first part of your question, from our perspective, this case is such a clear example of overreach in terms of what both the Children's Aid Societies were doing and what the government of Ontario was doing in terms of empowering the Children's Aid Societies to engage in using birth alerts. So in a situation where people, parents, mothers are already particularly vulnerable as pregnant people, and then as new parents, to add in this level of interference with their freedoms, to us, when we heard about it, was very egregious. And speaking to many parents who've been affected by birth alerts, the outcomes that have arisen as a result of birth alerts have been, in many cases, extremely devastating.
Do you have an estimated number as to how many mothers are impacted by these?
Yes, so we don't know precisely how many people were impacted. We do know that in Ontario, the number is in the thousands. We have evidence from certain of the Children's Aid Societies with regard to how many birth alerts they estimate that they issued during relevant times. But overall, we know that it was quite a long time that birth alerts were happening in Ontario, and so there were certainly thousands of families impacted.
And Tina, from our understanding, birth alerts ended in 2020 in Ontario. Can you explain why you're going after the province now?
So two things. The first, birth alerts were formally ended by a ministry directive in 2020. I understand that there have still been allegations that birth alerts in substance, if not in name, have continued. So our lawsuit doesn't deal with those circumstances, but it's still a relevant issue in terms of the scope of Children's Aid Society activities, and in terms of the scope of the Government of Ontario's oversight over Children's Aid Society's activities. And also just in general in terms of the way that the system operates. Again, it's still a very relevant issue, even if the formal practice of birth alerts was ended.
And Tina, can you explain why the Ontario Superior Court judge didn't give a green light to go after the child welfare agencies involved in these birth alerts?
Sure. So I do want to note that we have filed an appeal of that aspect of the decision. But the reason that was stated by the judge in not, we call it certification in the class action process, not certifying the case to go ahead with regard to the Children's Aid Societies, was as a result of, I'm going to call it, I think, a technical class action rule. So there was no comment on the merits of the case. There was no finding by the judge that in substance the claims were faulty, but the technical reason was that there's a requirement that there be one plaintiff per defendant in a class action, and so the effect of his decision was to say, go back and find parents who were involved with different Children's Aid Societies, because right now we only have 2 plaintiffs, so that's 2 Children's Aid Societies who are represented. And he said, nothing in my decision prevents you from going out and starting new lawsuits with new people against the individual Children's Aid Societies.
And now, Tina, as you've said, you filed an appeal. How long will that process take?
So we have filed an appeal with regard to the Children's Aid Society's aspect of the decision, and the government of Ontario has filed an appeal of the aspect of the decision which did certify as against Ontario. So those 2 appeals are proceeding together. We unfortunately are sort of at the whims of the capacity of our court system. Our rough estimate typically is that it takes about a year for an appeal to be resolved before the Ontario Court of Appeal, but we don't even have a hearing date yet.
Tina Yang, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you so much for speaking with us. Artist Jackie Travers is up next to give us a tour of her new art gallery in Winnipeg. That story when we come back. Stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. Time now for our photo of the day. We don't do photo of the year, but Patricia Martin shared a candidate if such a thing existed. How about this view from the Midnight Dome viewpoint located near Dawson City, Yukon? Wow, where heaven and earth meet. Thanks for that picture, Patricia. For the chance to be our next photo of the day, send us those pictures to share at aptn.ca. Time now for a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. On the east coast, Fredericton 27, Halifax 27 and partly cloudy. Cartwright 16, Inukjuak 19 and rain there. Quebec City 25, St. Jovite 25. 29 in Ottawa, Peterborough 28. Thunder Bay rain in 24, Wawa 19. Smoky in northern Manitoba, Thompson 21, Norway House 22. Rain in Brandon at 23, Smoky in Barons River at 23. Smoke in southern Saskatchewan, North Battleford 20, Regina 19. Sunny in Buffalo Narrows at 22, 21 in Stony Rapids. Showers in Grand Prairie at 20, Peace River 19. Showers in Medicine Hat at 22, Red Deer 22 and sun. Vancouver 24, Tofino 17. 15 in Prince Rupert, Fort Nelson 22. 21 in Old Crow, Rock River 16. 24 in Fort Liard, Wrigley 21 in rain. Showers in Inuvik at 16, Colville Lake 20. Baker Lake 11, Chesterfield 8. And Iqaluit 10, Aglulik 9. A renowned Winnipeg visual artist has opened up her own art gallery in Winnipeg's North End neighborhood. Jackie Travers says art is best seen in person, up close and personal. Our APTN reporter Sav Jones went to the grand opening to check out the eye-catching works of art.
Jackie Travers puts her soul into her art.
There's a light around them because they're spirits, eh? Yeah. And they're growing from the earth. You know.
The Anishinaabe artist from Winnipeg says you need to see art up close and personal to get the full effect of its brush strokes, textures, and vivid hues.
You can't capture the colors and the intensity of the work through a photo. It's so much better seeing it in person, and for people to be able to come here and just even look at the art will be huge for the area and for me to have people come view my work.
It's why she is so excited to finally open up her own art gallery, Creative Native, in Winnipeg's North End neighborhood. It's been quite a journey to get here, but now it's a dream that has been realized after years of increasing success.
Like, I grew up with my granny sometimes. I remember living just on the next street over, So I have a lot of good memories here from childhood, and typically people don't associate art with the North End. So I'm really glad to be bringing art to the North End.
She's grateful to have so much room to work on multiple projects at once and host painting classes for others to hone their creative skills.
And this piece here, I'm really, really in love with. This piece is about the women that were in the landfill, So, yeah. It built a lot of community, what the people had to go through, And it's a shame that had to happen, but I want to portray those women and the spirits of those women in the most beautiful way.
A humble person, Travers wasn't sure if anyone would show up at her grand opening. But once the doors opened, the space that once felt so large became crowded with enthusiasts.
Dance of the Matriarch. It's beautiful.
I think the art is really nice. It's beautiful. I wouldn't mind having a couple of these arts in my place.
Travers says all she ever wants to do is paint, but after creating her own textiles, partnering with a clothing brand, and filming a show for APTN, she can't help herself from looking at what opportunity is next to come with her new space.
If I could hand build with clay and get myself a little kiln for the basement, that would be one of the next things on my list of things to do.
Sav Jonesa, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Beautiful work. And finally for us this evening, heavy metal legend Ozzy Osbourne has died at the age of 76. He was a giant in the world of music, a larger-than-life character, well known for his onstage antics in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and beyond. Known to fans as the Prince of Darkness and the godfather of heavy metal, Osbourne has died at the age of 76. According to a post on social media, Osbourne was surrounded by his family when he passed away this morning. The family did not specify how he died, but in recent years, he was treated for Parkinson's disease. Osbourne's farewell tour wrapped up just 2 weeks ago, and during that tour, Ozzy was seen performing in a wheelchair and gave an emotional goodbye to his fans. And that's your evening newscast for this Tuesday. We're back again for your daytime newscast tomorrow at 12 p.m. Winnipeg time. Please join us then. From all of us at APTN National News, hi miigwech masicho, thank you for watching. We'll see you again. Ekose.